Is Jesus God? Well, hopefully I'm going to answer that question, because there's a lot of preachers. In fact, most of your global preachers, most of the people who are preaching about Jesus in the entire world right now are preaching that Jesus and God are the same being, and they're preaching that God died on the cross. And so I'm going to explore that right now, and I'm going to explain how Jesus is not God. In the book of Mark, in the very first verse, it clearly tells us the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and it calls him the Son of God. In Luke 1:32, you're also going to see the exact same thing that's being said there. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most Highest. He's saying that this is going to be the Son of God, the Son of the Most Highest, and that's what he's going to be called. So why do we have in the Bible that contradicts this? And why do people get this calling Jesus God at? That falls a lot on back in Matthew, the beginning of Matthew. Let's take a look at that. Matthew 1:23 says, Behold, the virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is translated God with us. That's only saying that God is with us. That is not making the claim that Jesus is also God. What the birth of Christ did was bring down the likeness of God down to us. We could see Jesus, we could see what he was doing, and so that brought in that God with us statement, but it still doesn't make him God. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. It is written in the book of John, chapter 5, verse 20. Now watch out. Watch for the play of words here. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does. What he's saying here is the Father loves the Son, and he shows him, who is Jesus, all the things that he, God himself, does, okay? And he, God, will show him, Jesus, greater works than these. This is why it's important to kind of understand what the subject is here, because there's references in the book of Daniel that talks about he's, and if you don't understand the he's that are being talked about, or the hymns, you can get lost in this. So what he's saying here is the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. Which means what? Will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. In other words, this is just the beginning. There's more to come that God will show Jesus. So there again, there's a separation right there, that Jesus and God are two separate entities, two separate beings. Look to me and be saved, all you ends of the earth, for I am God, and there is no other. God is clearly stating that he is it. He is not saying, I am a triune God. He's not saying there's more to me than this. He's simply saying there is no more. There is no other. It's the next verse that follows this that's very important to also understand, because it helps explain John 1:1. I have sworn by myself, the word has gone out of my mouth in righteousness, and shall not return, that to me every knee shall bow, every tongue shall take an oath. Okay, right here is something that's really important to understand. what God just said. He said, the word has gone out of my mouth in righteousness. That takes us to John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, we just read that where the Word came from. Word came from God. And so God gave His Word, He gave His promise. And so that was His promise of bringing salvation, okay? And so was the Word with God? Of course. Of course it was with Him because it is part of Him. And was the Word God? Yes, it was, because it's God and His promise. But does that mean that the Word or that Jesus is also God? And no, it doesn't. Let's go on and read what else it says. The next verse says that He was in the beginning with God. Now we're getting into the he's and the hims again. He was in the beginning with God. Now, what is he talking about? Is he talking about the Word? Is he calling the Word a he? He could be. Is he referring to Jesus? He could be. It doesn't explicitly tell us what he's talking about. He doesn't really go in and say, hey, exactly whether he is the Word or he is Jesus. But for the most part, most people say, well, he's talking about Jesus. He was in the beginning with God. But did you notice it doesn't say he was in the beginning as God, or was in the beginning as being, because he is God. No, he was with God regardless. He does not say that he was God. Only said that the Word was God. Now let's read John 1:14, because this is where we get to that point, people claiming that Jesus is God. And it says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Did anybody catch what that says after it says the Word became flesh? Does anybody ever catch that? I mean, these world preachers out there stop, absolutely just stop. So when it says, and the Word became flesh. But it says, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father. Again, he is not called God by John. He is called the Son of God in this verse 14 here. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Okay, so here again we have the same thing. Jesus is portrayed as the Son of God. He's not portrayed as God. There's one more verse I want to go over with you right quick, and that's when he was asked the question, are you the Son of God? Again the high priest asked him, saying to him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? The Son of the Blessed means the Son of God. He was being asked, are you God? He was being asked, are you the Son of God? Are you the Son of the Blessed? And Jesus said, I am. I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. Well, that was a simple answer. I am. But people use that word I am as well to say he's claiming to be God because the Old Testament's God said, I am that I am. They're two completely different meanings, absolutely completely different meanings. So I'm going to show you a bunch of scriptures in the Bible, in the New Testament anyway, that uses that same phrase that Jesus used, I am. And these people are just merely pointing out that they're answering a question, I am this, I am that. And so when Jesus was asked the question, are you the Son of God? He said, I am. And he wasn't referring that, oh, I am God, like so many people are trying to say. So let's take a look at some of these scriptures. If we look up the definition of this, we can see that I simply means me or my self, talking about myself, I. That's under the Strong's number 1473 if you want to look that farther. And then the am is defined as to be, to exist, to happen, or to be present. So what you're saying is I am means I am here, I am present, I am, yes, that's me. Okay? So now we have the definitions of those. Because it doesn't have the definitions now that everybody's saying it. And those are the words that Jesus used, and they does not have the definitions of anything referring to being God. Then Peter went down to the men who had been sent to him from Cornelius, and said, Yes, I am he whom you seek, for reason have you come. So Peter just said the exact same words that Jesus said, I am. And these are the same translations, and it has nothing to do with being God. The Apostle Paul states in Romans 7:14, For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. Here Paul used the exact same phrase, I am. These are the exact same words that Jesus used. Is Paul claiming that he is God? No, he's not. Peter doesn't claim it. Paul doesn't claim it. None of the Gospels claim it. There is no scripture anywhere in the Bible that portrays Jesus as being God. John goes to explain it on in his verses in 1 John 2:18, 2:22, 1 John 4:3, 2 John 1:7. He explains that this is a spirit of Antichrist. It's a false Christ that goes out and teaches these things and denies that Jesus is the Son of God. And so that's why it's important to understand that your salvation may actually depend on whether or not you even think he is who he is. Well, right now, that's all I have to offer on this subject. I just hope you understand that Jesus Christ is not God. He never has been, he never will be. Simple as that. I hope this has convinced you enough to take another look at your beliefs, maybe, if they're incorrect. And if they are, correct them, please.